welcome, we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for your service, Bill. And offering the invocation tonight is Mr. Roy Meekins, also of Nottoway County. I will turn the microphone over to Mr. Meekins.
Better known as Roy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
I can't say I'm as loud. It may be, I don't want to embarrass my mayor here. I'm not quite as loud as he is normally. But let us pray. Father, we do thank you for this night, this special time. We thank you for allowing us to meet in this place. And again, we thank Candy for allowing us to use her facility. Lord, I pray that you be with us tonight. You give us peace and comfort and understanding, knowing that you created each one of us. But we are not like-minded. So may everything we do, everything we say, be civil and peaceful and loving. We want to thank, again, Candy for allowing us to be here. I want to thank Dave Brat, our Congressman, and pray that you keep your hand of protection on him, and guide him, direct him, and keep him steadfast in the way you would have him to go. But we want to lift up the Boyne family. Wendy Boyne's father passed away this week. Will you comfort them and be with them? In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Meekins. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I will turn the program over to the Congressman for his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Dave Brat.
Thank you, Bill. All right, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I just want to echo the prayer. What a wonderful prayer, and saying the pledge. Thank you very much, and thanks to all those that hosted and our law enforcement officers here tonight. It's great to be with you. I'm going to take up your spirit. I went to Mass this Sunday with my family. And the preacher went off on the golden rule, treat others like you want to be treated. I fully intend to do that to you tonight. I hope we can have a civil discourse. I think that is the way forward for the country. I know there's a lot of anxiety on a lot of issues, and I'll give you forthright answers. I think everybody knows that's my reputation over the past couple of years. I've been about everywhere in the district trying to share my views on every topic under the sun. I've got a newsletter you can all sign up for. If you're interested in doing that, I put Facebook every day. I post every major vote we have. I explain my rationale for the vote. So if you agree or disagree, you can weigh in there. And on the questions, I hope some people I know are going to weigh in on this side or that side. But please offer up your best suggestions for improvements. For how do we improve policy? What's the way forward? Right. So that's what we're looking for in general. And so I wanted to obviously have my first town hall of the new year after the presidential cycle. I was kind of shocked by the new news narrative. A few weeks ago, started kind of on the leftist blogs, and it's "Where's Dave?" And I started reading these things, and I'm going, Where's that? Hello out there. Can you hear me out there? Can they hear me out there? Hello. Okay, good. Hi. And I started reading "Where's Dave?" And I haven't shared my background with you, so I'll just give you a 2-minute bio. But I had a pretty big political win a couple years ago based on being available to constituents. That was the number one thing I ran on and probably won on. And so I've had 500 meetings with constituents in the last 2 years, not including politics before that, not including running and all that kind of stuff. So 500 meetings with constituents. I've been to every Rotary. They're sick of having me at the Rotary. But I go to every sports thing, every church thing, every business thing, every chamber of commerce in every county. I've been to every single government center. Even before I won the election this time, I think I was in all the government centers for my new counties, right? Powhatan, Amelia, and Nottoway. And I think I met with all the government leaders and tried to get input so I know about the Fort Pickett here and FAST and those issues and economic business development. I hope we sell some hamburgers tonight and do good along that score. And so when this new narrative came up, where's Dave? I'm kind of like, okay, that's new to me. And so that told me what's going on. Right? It's all after Trump won the election. And there's a bitter divide. Right? That's the reality. Right? There's a bitter divide on that. Prior to that, no bitter divide with me. Everywhere I go, I've never put down an individual person anywhere I've been. Right? I try to live out the faith and follow the gold. I fail, right? But I try never to be negative. And so that's the way I roll. Let me give you just a little bio. Born in Detroit and then grew up in the middle of Michigan, basically out the farm field until about 8th grade, and then moved to Minneapolis. My dad ran a HMO, so I grew up knowing a little bit about healthcare and that kind of thing. And then went back to Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and worked at Arthur Anderson in business in Detroit and Chicago for a little bit, and then felt the call and went to Princeton Seminary. You should have seen the look on the partners' faces when I told them, Arthur Anderson, I'm going to business. They were like, huh, that's new on me. But a lot of them were kind of interested in that. So I went to seminary while I was there. I had a professor who was writing on economics and ethics. And so I went on a political semester down to D.C. to Wesley Seminary. And one of the guys, Phil Wadman, was doing, he was writing books on economics and ethics in one book. Right now in politics, that's kind of a joke. When people say, really? You think? And then you say you're going to D.C. and you're going to try and do economics and ethics. And it's a total joke. So Wesley Seminary in D.C., right across the street, is American University, so I went and pursued my PhD in economics while I was in D.C., met my wife there, worked at the World Bank a couple of years for the poorest countries in the world, worked on the Philippines for a couple of years. And that seminary experience got me rooted into that, trying to take care of the poorest in the world. And I've been preaching free markets. If you have a hard time sleeping, you got to come to that book, anybody? I got a book called American Underdog. If you have a hard time sleeping, you may want to pick that up. But the book basically says three things made the country great: Judeo-Christian tradition, and then the rule of law that comes out of that. Right? Moses, Paul Ryan looks out every day. The first thing he sees is Moses. And then if you're really lucky, you get the free market system. Right? Adam Smith and modern economics and business and everything. Right? And that made us the richest country in the world. And so when I started teaching, and then I went from there and taught at Randolph-Macon College up in Ashland for 18 years. I chaired the economics department. Worked for Senator Stosh for 7 years as a volunteer at the state. He's had a Senate finance.
Dave, are you going to take questions tonight?
Speak up.
No, are you going to take questions tonight?
Oh, yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not delaying. I'll take as many questions you guys want. I'll get you full out. Don't worry. All right. And, well, I'm not. Okay, good. Anyway, finishing up talking at Randolph-Macon.
Question.
Good. What's your name? I've got about 1 minute, and I'm going to do plenty of questions for you all night long. Right? I'm just trying to show. When I started teaching economics 18 years ago, the Chinese and the Indians made $1,000 a year per person. They chose free market 10 years ago. Now they're making, the Indians are up to about $8 grand a year. The Chinese are up to about $10,000 a year. So people say, do you care about the poor? How do you take care of the poor? The best thing you can do for the poor is to have a free market system and get the kids jobs, right, and train them in. And now the Chinese and the Indians have lifted 2.5 billion people out of poverty.
India's been a democracy for far longer than 10 years.
Yes, but their income 10 years ago was only $1,000, and now it's $8,000. And so I just wanted to give you a little bio so folks know who I am in the district. Believe me, I'll be
voted for you.
And Amelia and Powhatan all the time. I know the folks pretty well in Henrico and Chesterfield. We'll have plenty of town halls coming there. And then you can check. I always went to the outlying suburbs, to the counties first. Culpeper, up in the North Orange, Stockton, Louisa,
Arizona.
Good. And so with that, why don't we go to some cues here? The folks want some questions.
I got an idea. I got a question. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Thank you for having me.
I'm seeing good questions with no names on the cards.
They didn't tell us to put names.
Here's one from
They didn't tell
Powell.
us to put them on the card. We'd be happy to ask you in person, Mr. Congressman.
Okay, we're going to get to as many as we can, I promise you. This is Jenny Renson from Powhatan. Do you want to privatize Social Security?
No, we made a promise that to anyone near retirement within a 10-year window, there's going to be no changes. I know of no policy proposals to change Social Security at present, at all. So it's not on the table. So people are very nervous and anxious after the Trump win. So my goal tonight is to help allay some of those anxieties in the room. I'm telling you on Social Security, if you want to challenge me, go on to Facebook and let me know. But as far as I know, no one has any policy proposal on Social Security whatsoever.
You support
and Trump has
privatization?
said that he will not allow any changes to Social Security or Medicare. So I have no plans right now to vote for any changes because there's no will to form. We're going less. Sorry, folks. We're not going to go back and forth and create a...
We have another question from Caroline Heald of Rixieville, Virginia. Congressman, what will you do to preserve the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency?
The EPA, I think we all stand behind the most important work that the EPA does, which is to give us clean environment, clean air, clean water. I think everyone in this room wants clean air and clean water. And now let me tell you, I work at the World Bank, and they're very interested, and they have departments that do clean air and clean water. And guess what? The number one thing you can do to have clean air and clean water is increase your economic growth. Rich people, it turns out, like clean air and clean water.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let the Congressman finish.
I don't think I said anything controversial yet. Do you want to be poor or do you want to be rich? Let me not ask questions because then I like asking questions. I think I'm asking too many questions. So the best thing we can do for the environment, if you look at Brazil and the trade-offs they have on a clean environment, they put their own living, right, on a day-to-day basis, chopping down forests, etc., versus growing the economy versus cleaning the environment. They're in a hard spot. We're not in a hard spot. We have the cleanest air and clean water, and all the richest capitalists
You're from Michigan.
have the cleanest air and cleanest water in the world.
Hey, folks, we started out tonight really positive, and we all were getting along. We're going to have discourse, but we've got to have it one at a time. Please, Congressman, continue.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's just get through a lot of questions.
Okay, the next question is from Jennifer Yane of Hillside Avenue. We have her email address, so that will help the staff. Her question is, if Congress, after many months, cannot come up with an equitable health care plan, how can average individual citizens hope to find an equitable plan?
Good. Let me give you the order of what's going to happen for this year. So that'll help the timeline here, right? So I'm on the budget committee. We're going to move forward with reconciliation. In the first budget, we're going to deal with Obamacare. It'll be a repeal and a replace. What but you don't even care. Don't even give any applause. So that's good. And then I'll get through way more questions if we can. So what was I on? What's coming? So we're going to do Obamacare in the first, and then in the second budget, which was just announced today on all the major papers in the country. The second budget is probably going to come up in April. Trump just announced, right? We got our Secretary of Health pricing a couple weeks ago. We got our Secretary of April if we get things right. Now, on the equitable question. What are we going to do?
Here's another. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me just give you a broad outline to ease the anxiety. There's a price healthcare plan that's been out there forever. There's the Better Way project of Paul Ryan and leadership, Republican leadership. You go Google that and see what the rough numbers are. And then there's Rand Paul plan. All I can tell you is every plan I know about, everybody gets a 2-year transition with health care. Basically what you have now, right? And there'll be a 2-year transition. So the number one worry, I talked to a young gentleman out there who had serious concerns, and I take the serious concerns very seriously. My dad was a doc. I grew up with this. And so no one's going to have the rug pulled out from under them. There will be a transition path. And then from there, it's a debate over what the replacement package looks like.
To what?
Medicare, if you don't know, we have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities right now. We have $20 trillion in debt that who's going to pay off? We're the young people.
We are! We've been paying our debt for years!
We have $20 trillion in debt that we're not paying off. The kids are going to pay off the debt. We have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, promises to pay future benefits for Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and the Bush prescription drug plan that we will not pay to the young people. Medicare and Social Security are both insolvent in 2034. The kids will not get Medicare and Social Security in law when they retire. In our health care system, the costs are going up at 20% right now. Our promise is to bend the cost curve down. The ACA did not bend the cost curve down.
It did bend the curve down. The Pew Research Center proved that it bent the cost curve down over the last 8 years.
In some states it's 50% up. In Arizona it's over 50%.
What about California and Massachusetts and Hawaii?
Healthcare costs are going up 20%. And healthcare costs are the major drivers in Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, veterans programs, etc. So the car is in the ditch. The federal government is in the ditch. Our states are much better run. Our localities are much better run. And the fundamental problem we have is that politicians at the federal level don't have to balance budget. We can just print money, borrow from China, and
You've been in the government for 2 years.
What are you going to give us? That's the question.
Yeah, I gave you some. Let's go to the next one.
Wait a minute, Dave. You didn't tell us what you were going to do.
Here's a different topic. Let's all kind of...
He didn't answer the first one.
This next question is from Jeannie Ringer of Powhatan County Electoral Board, 20 years of service. Do you favor an independent investigation into election hacking by the Russians? I'm very concerned.
American Underdog. I outlined the 3 things that made us great. Part 2 is called the rule of law. So yes, I'm in favor of investigating and having our House and Senate
bipartisan investigation.
If you can hear, I can't tell if you can hear anywhere you're yelling so much. But if you can hear me, what I'm saying is yes. Legal authorities should investigate and follow the rule of law wherever it leads, no matter what party you're in.
Thank you,
And
Dave.
our oversight in the House.
I
Here's another question. This is from Peter Kaufman of Richmond. Peter has some fans in the house tonight. Why should mentally ill people have access to guns?
I think the question is referring to a bill we had which restricts constitutional rights underneath the Second Amendment. I think that's what the question's getting at. I am a firm believer in following Section 2 again, the rule of law. If you want to change the law, we can change the law. And if there are issues with mental health and guns, which there are, we need to fix that. But the particular bill, I think the question referred to restricting people of their due and for the folks who are yelling, you're not being fair to the other people who do want to hear and take part in a rational dialogue. So I'll do the best I can, but nobody keeps the folks from hearing.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's let him finish the question.
That's fine. Go ahead.
No, please go! Please finish!
Mr. Brat, this is a question from Donna Wade of Midlothian, Virginia.
Woo! Midlow in the house!
Mr. Brat, since most of the services provided at Planned Parenthood facilities are for services other than abortions, what will these patrons do with no other options for their health care needs, such as cancer screening? Basically, the question is since most of the services provided at Planned Parenthood are for services other than abortions, what will these patrons do with no other options available for their health care needs?
Right. We're in favor of pushing funding from there to health clinics so women get the I think from now on the ground rule bill will be if people start yelling while I'm in the middle of it, I'm just going to move on to the next question. So if you want Planned Parenthood,
Oh my God, I'm
right?
so hot.
The word Planned Parenthood, but Planned Parenthood doesn't do prenatal screenings.
Yes, they do!
And so they don't do Planned.
Oh my God, I used to run a prenatal program for Planned Parenthood.
Are pretty clear. 1/3
Oh my God.
of the market is for abortion is
Quiet, please.
And so folks want to send me info to clarify. That's my answer.
The Hyde Amendment prevents
Listen, another
federal
question,
funding of
another topic.
abortion.
I'd like to be able to answer the question. Congressman Brat, what will you do to rein in President Trump's unfactual statements that so alarm our allies?
All right, let me give you a liberal arts answer to this one. And it's fairly simple on Trump's comments in general, because I know there's a million others out there. That's part of the anxiety that people want to know about, right? So I mentioned Adam Smith, Scottish Enlightenment, pretty much Presbyterian. I mentioned James Madison. He went to Princeton Seminary, wrote the Constitution. I'm Presbyterian. Donald Trump says he's Presbyterian. So my job, the question is, what am I going to do? I'm going to urge us all to follow the first principles that made this country great on commentary, inflammatory statements, statements that people find incendiary toward individuals, interruptions, being rude in public, etc. And so if people say that Trump's language is too harsh and erratic or dramatic, but the same people that are making the criticisms are being rash and erratic and interrupting. It's harder to take. The president works for us. And we're in charge. And so I just gave you my answer. I intend to hold us all to the same standards, including myself, to the Judeo-Christian tradition, to the rule of law, and to free market. Go ahead. I think that gets it. All right.
So how are you
This is
going to hold
another
it
topic, ladies and
accountable?
gentlemen. This is education. We've not had an education question yet. Congressman Brat, you advocate that if someone is unhappy with a school district, they should just, quote, change zip codes. It takes a lot of money and energy to do this, luxuries most of us cannot afford. Why did you say this?
If that's the quote, it's a little out of context. My logic is not the opposite of that, but the argument I made about choice, and here the anxiety levels are out. I covered this outdoors with a large group as well. So there's anxiety on Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, vouchers, etc. The only plan I've heard that's in play, right? Some people are nervous about all public education is going to go away, etc. The only plan I've heard that's been proposed is $20 billion in vouchers for kids in the inner cities and some of the rural posts where folks live in a zip code where they don't have choice. Some of the kids in the inner city and the handiest shack is the world's leading expert. I ran a bunch of regressions back at Randolph. They can study this for 20 years. And he's shown that education spending has gone up by 375% and test scores are flat. And the PISA data came out a few weeks ago, and if I remember this correctly, press, be kind on the PolitiFact if I get it wrong, but the bottom 10% of Vietnamese kids are outscoring our 50th percentile in 9th grade algebra. Right? And so we can do better, but part of doing better is offering kids a choice. Kids with disabilities, I work on to give them vouchers. I work with Senator Stosh for 3 years in a row. And so I've been working to give kids choice. In some of those cases, kids were suing their counties, right, in their school districts, underneath the, I forget the acronym, but they have an individualized education plan, IEP, I guess that's the acronym. And so when you have parents suing their school district and their county, that's not optimal, right? So we want to provide a voucher, a partial solution for kids where the school wasn't meeting their needs, and that you always have the choice, right? The kids can stay in the public school. My kids got the most outstanding education imaginable, right, in my neighborhood and in Wright. They went to public schools and they're phenomenal. The teachers are phenomenal. The administration is phenomenal, etc. And so I'm just telling you what I know right now. The only plan I know is $20 billion in vouchers for kids in the inner cities and some rural kids that don't have any choice. Right?
We have another education question. This is from, and I'm sorry I didn't read some of the names. I got a little flustered. This is from Aleta Strickland of Louisa, Virginia. Aleta Strickland.
Welcome. Thank you.
Do you support Betsy DeVos' philosophy of Christian education in public schools?
No.
The question is for the Congressman. The question is for the Congressman.
I have never read an article on Betsy DeVos' Christian philosophy for public schools. And so I don't think the question has it right. Now let me I hear a lot of yells out on the Judeo-Christian tradition stuff, right? And so one of the things we have in this country, Madison and Jefferson at the end of their life, they're most proud not of being president of the United States, which is kind of incredible, not of being president of UVA, which is not a bad accomplishment. They were most proud of their statutes on religious toleration.
Freedom.
Right? And freedom. And so that is the issue. What does our First Amendment say? It's not a separation of church and state. It says you shall not establish a religion. The state shall not establish a religion. It doesn't say there should be any religion. Comma, and there should be free expression thereof. That's why everybody's yelling right here in town hall. It's a great thing. Right? We're all free to express our opinions. I'm in the middle of answering, but I kind of lose my focus when everyone's yelling, answer the question. So let me keep going. Right, so what is my question? What is my position on DeVos' philosophy of Christianity in the public schools? I don't think she has one. The public schools right now, if you go and ask, part of the issue is this, and this religious toleration thing has to do with toleration in general. If your kid goes into school and asks about the relationship between academics and their faith, unfortunately, right now, the teacher will go, Johnny and Mary, go back and do your geometry or something.
Not true.
Right? We don't have a discussion on the first principles. And because it's become so uncomfortable to talk about first principles. But there cannot be a divide because our rights in our tradition come from God. Right? There is no sever, and Jefferson knew that, right? So there is no wall unless you have some other source of rights, but that'll take a long time to develop. So in our tradition, you have rights which come from God, the Creator, which that is I am answering it. If you can hear the answer, it's right here. And so there is a tension between having rights which come out of that tradition, without which you don't get rights. I don't think anyone wants to go in that direction. So that's interesting. So we have a tradition built on those rights, and the key statement is we don't want to force, nor should we force religion on anybody.
Yeah.
Period. And there's your answer, I think, to the question. But you have to do those in tandem. We do not force our religion on anyone. That's religious toleration. But on the other hand, each one of you has free expression to be an atheist, a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, Jewish, etc. Right? And so, that's the answer.
Thank you, Congressman.
This is fun. Thank you, y'all.
Here's a question about the president. The president has refused to release his federal tax returns to date. Thanks to a law passed in 1924, Congress has the authority through the House Ways and Means Committee to have the returns released to them. Will you encourage future efforts for Congress to have the IRS send Trump's returns to them? Do you want to disclose that? Bob Touchman Chesterfield.
I must be a constitutional scholar. I have not heard of that provision, but I will take a look at it, and if we do have that authority, I'll look into that authority.
Ladies and gentlemen, I found something shocking just a moment ago. We have a question from someone from Blackstone. You know I'm going to ask. This question is from Daphne Cole. It's short and sweet. Congressman Brat, do you deny climate change?
Do I deny climate change? No, the climate changes all the time.
Please, let him finish.
I'll give you more.
It's not funny.
I'll give you more on climate change. Yes, the climate's changing. I did a PhD in economic science. I listen to the best science on the environment. If you give me the data and show me the temperature's changing, which it is, and the water's changing, which it is, I'm a rational guy. And then you boo me when I say I agree with you. So I don't know how you win this. All right, go ahead. Next question.
Next question is from Diane Frazier of Midlothian. Question is, Congressman, can you tell us about your relationship with Steve Bannon?
I don't have much of a relationship with Steve Bannon. And so he works for the White House. I'm not in charge of the choice of secretaries or whatever. That's the executive's prerogative. And so I don't have a relationship. I was in the West Wing last week, the only time I've been there so far, working on HSAs with Cone. And that's the extent of my West Wing activity so far.
Okay, very good. Another question regarding executive in the White House. Can you explain the executive order that President Trump signed regarding the travel ban? Also, do you believe it was legal for him to do that? This is from Andrew Martin. I don't have his address. Andrew Martin.
Yes, now bear with me here, folks. All right, here we go. We're going to go through the slow motion. First of all, was it legal? Yes. Was it constitutional? Yes. Should he have included green cards in it? No. And that caused all sorts of upsets. So I wrote a new one today without the green card. Now here's the issue. The travel ban, it's a temporary travel ban from 7 Muslim countries, right? And so the issue is, are we discriminating on the basis of religion? And the answer is, who chose the 7 countries? And the answer is President Obama and Congress and the Republican Congress. It's okay, I'm being fair and balanced here. And the Republican Senate. It might have been a Democratic Senate back then. So anyway, the seven countries chosen are either one of 2 categories. Either they're world's leading state sponsors of terror, like Iran, or they're non-functioning states like Syria. So the United States, and this may shock you, has one of the most sophisticated vetting systems in the world. It's a great vetting system, right? The only problem with the most outstanding vetting system in the world is you need data to vet. So if you have a failed state that does not give you any data to vet, we can't vet. So all we're saying is for 3 months, right? 4 months on a couple of cases, we're going to have a delay, a pause of folks coming into the country till we can vet, which makes perfect common sense. The execution of it, they goofed up on some of the green card. They're fixing that. And the courts have challenged, I think the Ninth Circuit, I think there's something they've been overruled 80% of the time. 90, maybe 80, whatever. So one number I have is 80%. So that's the Ninth Circuit. It's been overruled 80%. So there's a little politics in. Shocker in Washington, D.C. once in a while. Politics seeps into things. Right? But after the Supreme Court is finished with it, you will find, and you can put me on the record, it will be found to be constitutional. Next.
Another immigration type question. Basically, this is from Anita Schneider of Henrico.
Yep.
As a fiscal conservative, how can you justify the cost of a multi-billion-dollar wall on the Mexican border?
The answer is easily. There are several papers out now which show the full cost of immigration on the country when it comes to the welfare system, the entitlements that are $100 trillion unfunded, etc. Those costs, the minimum cost is $100 billion for those. If you throw in lost work, etc., you're up to $400 billion. The cost for the wall, the grand estimate is something in the ballpark of $20 billion. Now that's still serious change, and I got serious reservations there. And so now for the folks that you may not know my track record, I took on my own leadership for the last 2 years on fiscal responsibility. Right? Just so everybody knows, I ran on Madison and Adam Smith and things working out okay. And I held my own team up to the same standards on fiscal responsibility. So here's what I'm on the budget committee, here's what we're looking at. We have to find $8 trillion in savings to balance in 10 years. $8 trillion. That is without Trump's priorities. That's without the wall. Infrastructure is probably $300 billion to $1 trillion. Tax cuts are going to be in there. Obamacare is going to be in there, etc. So we're at $8 trillion. We got to find $8 trillion in savings to balance in 10 plus those.
The cabinet.
Right? And, but just to make it clear, I took on my own side, which has a plan to balance in 10. The other side of the aisle has a plan to balance never. Right? And so we're met with no entitlement reform, no balanced budget talk, nothing. And that's why the country is going into debt up to our eyeballs. All right, what do you got, Bill?
I found another question. This is from Becky Jones of Blackstone.
Becky, all right. Becky, all right.
Do you agree with President Trump when he states that, quote, everything is running smoothly?
Thank you, Becky.
That's a nice softball. Thank you for that. The answer to that is, given the obstruction in D.C., overturned, which is getting the economy moving. What's going on now? The stock market is going like zing for the first time. $1 trillion in new wealth in the market.
Thank you, President Obama.
They don't like this one. All right, moving on.
Here's another question from Blackstone. This is from Jonathan Jones. This question is from Jonathan Jones. It is very simple. What is your stance on the Second Amendment?
100% Second Amendment. Right? The Second Amendment comes after all those freedoms we've been talking about the whole time, right? Freedom to assemble, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of everything.
Try to put people in jail and watch this guy.
Put the second right after it, because that helps to ensure the First Amendment. And they're all built on each other. We were lucky to have some smart folks.
Guns for terrorists! Woohoo!
That was a question on a current amendment. Here's a question about a possible future amendment. This is from Robert of Henrico County. Congressman Brat, you campaigned saying you supported term limits for congressmen. Do you still believe this? And when will it affect you?
Sorry. Have I mentioned I went to seminary yet? I think you're playing bingo out there, right?
Seven times!
I don't like you at all, right? So when I make a promise, I do it. I said I'm going to put in a balanced budget amendment. Did I do it? Yes. I said I'm going to put in a term limit bill. Did I do it? Yes. Did everybody vote for it? Did politicians vote for it?
No.
Did I vote for both of them?
Yes.
Yes. Right? And so that's that. It's a 12-year term limit. I'll see you in 12 years. I'll go off and teach kids philosophy and nothing again. You're literally going and teaching kids? I can't get you guys out here for nothing. All right, next
question. This is from Carl Swan of Louisa. It's a two-part question. First part's real simple. Do you support a strict separation of church and state? Two-part question.
I think I covered this one. What? It's a two-part?
Yeah, your answer would be yes, I assume. Do you support a strict separation of church and state?
The best answer to that is what founders gave us, First Amendment. So to repeat myself, the founders were smarter than yes and no. So they said, you shall not establish a national church. I'm 100% agree. You should not coerce religion on anybody. Period. Right? God could have made robots. God wants you to listen to me. He could have just made robots. He gave us free will. There's your freedom. On the other hand, there's a little comma there, and you get free expression of whatever you want to do. So Johnny and Mary should, at all levels of education, ask, where do rights come from? How is science related to creation, to how in the world we get here? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I on this planet? And if you don't tell a kid in 18 years why they're on the planet, and they don't have a purpose, then I don't think they're going to be too motivated. Right? And so, that's my answer. So I'm like, that's my answer.
Well, the second part of the question was, how do you plan to deal with the suggested use of vouchers to support religious-based private schools?
Right, and so that we have to work through and follow the Constitution so that there is no establishment of a church, right? But vouchers can go through parents, etc., and then you can make your choice at an individual level. And that's not the state dictating anybody's religion. All right?
This is a question for economics question. Can you explain, this is from Rodney Martin, can you explain our current national debt and the off-balance sheet obligations and the impact it will have on future interest rates? It's kind of a pretty scholarly question there. The deficit,
All right.
interest rates.
You ready for a nap? All right. Interest rates are related to the amount of money you print, right? So everyone thinks that we printed all this money, right? So if you go to the Federal Reserve, not the government, the Federal Reserve Bank, the system, there's $4 trillion in their bank vaults, right? So we created, that's called high-powered money. Now, if you, in your Econ Macro 101 course, which everyone's forgotten, I hope, by now, the only time money is created is when that high-powered money gets loaned out. When that gets loaned out, if that got loaned out, what would that take for it to get loaned out? You'd have to have 5-10% economic growth, right now. Right? So huge demand for money, loans being made, that's not happening. We're only growing at 1.5%. Right? So there's no fear of overheating. If you did overheat, $4 trillion in high-powered money gets loaned out, and you would get hyperinflation. All else equal. Economists always say all else equal, right? You would get hyperinflation, and you would get huge interest rate shocks going way up through the roof. Right? The Fed knows this. They know they have to back off that $4 trillion. They're starting to try to do that, right? If they quit printing money and doing all the low interest rate stuff that they've been doing for years, right? Then the fear is, right, if interest rates go up, then the economy slows even further. So they're walking a fine balance, but I think most people's view is interest rates should come back up into somewhere normal around 3 or 4%. Seniors on fixed incomes aren't making any money, right? Your retirement accounts, etc. And so if you have 3 or 4% interest rates at that level, then seniors are making 6 or 7%. And you're getting back to some normalcy, right? So that is the 2-minute answer.
Very good. Thank you, Congressman. This is a question from Tony Burgess of Krug here in Nottoway County. His question is, the Republican budget that Paul Ryan is developing cuts Social Security and Medicare. Will you vote for or against these cuts?
We do not have any such budget in front of us yet.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, we do not. I'm on the budget committee, and we don't have that budget in front of us.
Will you support a budget that cuts those programs?
No, I don't lie.
Will you support a budget that cuts those
Please,
programs?
quiet. A lot of these questions are repetitive. Here's a question from Liam Duffy of Richmond. It's a question about, given Donald Trump being made aware of Flynn's communications with the Russian ambassador 11 days before Flynn was fired, and not taking action until this was reported by the Washington Post, basically, do you support an independent investigation into Trump's relationship with Russian operatives?
Woo!
Independent investigation.
On that issue, there's no allegation of wrongdoing of Flynn. No, I don't. I told you on the other one, yeah, on this one, there's no evidence. You don't get to just throw spaghetti on the wall. Right?
You did that with Hillary's emails.
Quiet, please. Quiet. Quiet. A good question from Casey Quinlan of Enright. It's about community hospitals. What is your plan for helping rural hospitals stay open? Uncompensated, basically the question, uncompensated care is a huge burden for these hospitals, indigent care.
That is the solution for the way forward, right? My goal is to get the federal government out of running, and you would not want the federal government building your car. We want a safety net so people, right, without income can have health care and can have transportation, and we have a social contract for that. But you do not want the federal government building your car or your house or whatever. And so the question, who I do want running this stuff is I want that money coming back down to the states and localities where you know what your neighbor's needs are. That's the way the country started out, right? You knew your neighbor, you took care of your neighbor, your church helped out, the bank helped out, the baseball team helped out, and everyone took care of each other, right? And you love each other. And so I want to bring that money back down to where people know the true needs of the people. And some of these health, I might be making this up. Perhaps. But I've heard hospitals are actually starting to pay for some of the free clinics in their area because the free clinic can do a better job at a lower cost than the hospital can, and it actually saves the hospital money. I mean, that kind of logic hurts your brain and shows you how broken the current system is.
It was the ACA that gave you money to do it.
Logic on that.
Thank you, Congressman. Here's another question. It's anonymous, but I think a lot of us who live in Southside Virginia can relate. It's 3 words on this card. Rural internet help.
Okay.
What's my question, Brian?
Yeah, I've been working for a long time up in Orange with the head of the county, and he has a rural private sector, public sector solution that's low cost and provides internet to rurals. And I worked with him in economics way long ago before he was running the county and whatever. Very smart guy. His last name is David. I'm blanking on his first name. But yes, we want to get, for kids' education, I want every kid to have access to the internet. And we're going to figure out a way to do that. And Mr. David has a great solution that's working in Orange. So I'm new here, but I got to meet your folks down here, and we'll find some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. This is a question. It's a yes or no and a follow-up. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Do you know what the Hyde Amendment is? 1976. The Hyde Amendment. The question continues. It prohibits the use of federal money for abortions. Does this mean you want to limit women's access to health care, such as cancer screenings and prenatal care?
Absolutely not. Women should have the best health care possible, period.
Very good. Here's another health question, yes or no? Congressman, can you commit to making sure people with pre-existing conditions will still have access to health insurance?
Yeah. Under every plan under consideration. That's one of the key pieces, right? Every plan, the price plan, grand plan, pre-existing conditions, right, are taken care of. There's a transition of 2 years where no one's going to get the rug pulled out, and that's a huge deal, right? Making sure that insurance can't drop you. If you have portability across state lines, someone gets a policy, you get to keep it no matter where you move. That goes a long way to taking care of pre-existing conditions, right? If you have a policy and you get to keep that policy and no one can drop you, right? There are plenty of ways to solve that problem. I hope that makes everybody happy. A solution. Everybody's happy.
And there is a follow-up. There's a follow-up along the same lines, and it deals with the Children's Health Insurance Program. Congressman, can you commit to keeping the Children's Health Insurance Program intact?
Yeah, yes, Chip, I haven't seen anything coming up before us on that one, but yeah, we all want to do everything we can for the kids on education, on health, on nutrition, on whatever, right? And so we're going to look for the best ways to do that actually work. As I said before, federal spending on education is up 375%, and test scores are flat, right? And so we're always looking for better ways to save your taxpayer money. And of course, we all want to make our kids as healthy as possible. That's obvious. Good.
Here's another question. It's sort of been asked tonight, but it's worded, I guess, a little different. But basically, it says, Congressman, please tell us your stand against handing over Social Security funds to Wall Street, otherwise called privatization of Social Security. I think we covered it earlier, but anything you care to add or say it succinctly?
This might shock you, so everyone is a little partisanship going on in the country right now. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's a little tension. When I ran, I was one of the first people in the country to run as an outsider against the establishment on both sides of the aisle. I ran against all the crony deals of special interests on Wall Street, right? The financial crisis started in the housing sector, the only asset that was safe, and then spilled over into the financial sector, and Wall Street was the biggest mess of unethical behavior I ever seen. It was about that time I had students writing ethics papers on fraud on Wall Street, and I still got it. And I'm proud of the work I did with all the young people. And so Wall Street, I think we're going to clean the swamp coming up here. When you see how many of you can stand up and tell me what the corporate rate is going to look like coming up and the amount of deductions on the personal form coming up? It's going to be 1 page. Right? A lot of the cronies are going to go out of business when they lose all the deductions and all the special interest stuff. And I'm in charge on that. I want to get power out of DC and out of Wall Street and back to Main Street.
Bring back Glass-Steagall!
We have time for 2 more questions. We're getting about 5 minutes before we... and this question here deals with, I think, bipartisanship and the lack thereof. This is a question from Amanda Conlon of Louisa County. And she says, 2 weeks ago you wrote an article titled, Out of Power Democrats Rediscover the Constitution. Amanda says, this type of rhetoric reads to me as divisive and unproductive at a time when we need both parties to work together and with each other. Congressman, can you give specific examples of how you are working with your Democratic counterparts?
Absolutely. I have co-sponsored several bills with Democrats. I've worked with Keith Ellison, who's going to be the head of the DCCC, on religious toleration concerning relationships between the Judeo-Christian tradition and Islam. So if you don't think I weigh into it with my Democrats, Juan Vargas is a Jesuit Catholic Democrat in the morning. We lift weights. We all get along and laugh and share ideas. And I've challenged Keith. I said, hey, I think we can do better with Islam on statutes on religious toleration. And he agrees. He said, we got thousands of people just like you, Dave, that believe in religious toleration, etc. I said, I know you do. I said, but we need a philosopher in Islam, a philosopher or a theologian, right, of note. And in my own book, I said the Western Civ basically came to an end roughly in about the 60s when it comes to ideas. We had 3 great people working across the island, across continents, right? We had Reinhold Niebuhr in the Protestant tradition working with Martin Luther King on race relations, working with Mahatma Gandhi. They were all reading each other. And there was hope in the world at that time. Right now, everyone, there's too much anxiety. There's a lot of negativity. Those are the guys I study. I try to stay positive and upbeat all the time. But I'm working with Democrats on huge ideas that'll make this world better off. Bernie is a buddy of mine. I met Bernie at a White House Christmas party. That guy, he tells the truth. I disagree with him on half the stuff, but he's a truth teller. I said to him, Bernie, I said, I've been up here on the bipartisan thing. I said, I've been up here for a couple of years. I'm a rookie from Virginia. I'm Dave. Nice to meet you. You're running, pleasure to meet you. I'm for president. And I said, everyone talks about this bipartisan stuff up here. It's right versus left versus right. I said, I haven't seen that. I said, for me, I've seen the leadership of both sides of the aisle doling out $4 trillion to their friends. I said this in front of 20 people at the White House, right? All members of Congress. I said, is that the way you see it? I said, I haven't seen this right-wing, left-wing war going on with whatever. The press likes to characterize it that way. But I don't see it. I see the leadership doling out $4 trillion, and we don't find out what's in the health bill, the budget bill, whatever, until the people do. I said, you see it that way? Yeah. Well, hell yeah, Dave. What the hell do you think's going on up here? That's what's going on. Right? So I agree. Bernie agrees. At Wall Street, hey, I'm one vote. Keep voting people like me, or Bernie if you're a Democrat that's going to tell you the truth and get rid of the corruption. And it'll happen. Yeah.
This is sort of a philosophical question, but this question is from Mary Mullins of North Chesterfield. Congressman, you regularly say that you're an ethicist, which is just a person who studies ethics. I want to know what ethical principles you believe in and how those principles relate to the policies that you promote. How does ethics guide you, basically? Let's let the congressman answer.
This is kind of a big fun. Right? If you have a hard time sleeping tonight, the 200-page answer to that question is in the book. I will give you a 1-minute cadet, and I'm sure there's a 200-page answer. If you're interested in the time, here's the connection. Western civilization is basically the synthesis of two things: the Judeo-Christian tradition and Greek reason, which allows you to have rational discourse. For the secular folks, I'm fine going with Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, right? For the religious folks, the Judeo-Christian tradition helps me in my life. That tradition gave us the rule of law. It gave us Magna Carta first, and then it gave us all of our founders, right? James Madison went to Princeton Seminary. What's that? That's the synthesis of the Judeo-Christian tradition and Greek reason. That's responsible, and that gives us free market economics. It's all one piece it's all one piece. So what's the relationship? What?
You're not answering my question.
Ignore her, dude.
Why, please?
Do you believe in the golden rule? Do you believe?
Well, of course. You don't even have to. If I just said I follow the Judeo-Christian tradition, I opened the talk, if you missed it, with saying I believe in the golden rule. And so I assume you all know, of course, I believe in the golden rule. And if you want to go the secular route, Immanuel Kant, the famous German philosopher, did the same thing at a secular level without getting religious about it. So there are ways we can all talk together. Islam and Judaism and Christianity were all talking together in the 12th century using Aristotle. Right? And so what principles? I mean, I got 200 pages of principles.
That means you believe Zeus is our God.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one final question. We're at 8 o'clock, and this deals with President Trump. Congressman, President Trump has signed an executive order that mandates any agency wanting to implement a new business regulation must at the same time repeal two existing regulations.
Arbitrary.
Do you feel this is enough?
That's a good question. Let me put it this way. Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, 2013, 14, 15, doesn't really matter. Congress does about 5 inches of law a year. The executive branch does 11 feet of law and regs. So we passed a bill saying we're going to do clean air. Makes us all look good and get a nice vote back home. And then we say, you, executive branch, go fill in all the details on all this stuff. They're not elected. They're not accountable, right? And so if you want to know why D.C. is out of control, we're just unelected bureaucrats are making rules and regs on everything. The economy's growing at 1.5%. Regs are $2.5 trillion out of a $19 trillion economy. $2.5 trillion. I am friends with a few bankers who I have students working with, etc. And I believe if you're all concerned about it, I know everybody's cynical. If you missed the memo, I raised like $150,000 for my race and beat someone with $5 million. Right? So if you're that cynical, don't be that cynical. I'm not a big money guy. Right? So if I say I know bankers, it's to express the issue I'm talking about. Bankers, when they hire 100 people, they hire a new floor of people. About 80 of those people are doing paperwork, and 20 of them are doing banking. And you just go ask your friends if that's true. Ask your community banker and say, and I'll bet your community banker is saying they're this far from going out of business. Your local community bankers, small bankers, are going out of business 1 a week, etc., something on that order, right? And so go ask your businesses, and then your kids need to get jobs somewhere, right? If you lose your bank, you're going to lose the next piece of the pie right on down the line. And so I don't think this is ideological. We need to clean the sclerosis out of the veins, get rid of the regs, get the economy moving, get the kids jobs, skill them up, get them excited about business, and everybody will be happy again. Wages have been flat for 30 years, and when wages are flat for 30 years, people get a little tense. That's what we got going on, right?
I told this will be our last question.
I rambled on my bio, so we'll do a few more. I want to keep
This
my
involves,
word. I blathered on all my stuff.
this question does involve several people in the room I know behind the camera. President Trump has denigrated the media. The First Amendment gives the right to a free press. Where do you get your news?
Where do I get my news? Holy moly, I read about every newspaper in the morning. You can talk to the guys in the gym. I'm there with 10 papers and an iPad with every news source in the world. So I read about every single thing I can every single day. Now, the question on the news, fake news. I've been in Congress for 2 years. I got the Washington Post and the Richmond Times Dispatch has done 3 issues on Where is Dave and accessibility with his new narrative. But no news about me going to the White House and working on health care, nothing on my budget work for 2 years, nothing on Obamacare, nothing on regulatory stuff, nothing on the tax reform. I'm dying to work with the media on the news. That's the news. That's what the newspaper should cover. Right? Instead, all these little comments come out that say, I think you're all paid organizers and actors. That's not true at all. I said there's a lot of folks out there organizing, and they are. Today it was on CNN. CNN, right?
Good for you, Dave.
3 former Democratic staffers are running this Indivisible. It's had 15 million downloads so far. And that's okay. And so I didn't, if you'll notice, I didn't say that's bad. I just said a lot of people are organizing and doing rallies and people are getting boisterous. I don't mind boisterous. I'm having fun. Right? So that's... I like having debate and spirit.
We're not paid.
If you could have a conversation.
We are not paid.
That question, by the way, was from Kim Wyman of Fredericksburg. Next question is from Buddy Palmore. Congressman, tax reform when? Tax reform when?
That is the $8 trillion question. Where's Buddy? That's a good question. All right, I only gave you the answer. Who knows the answer? Who's listening? Who's yelling? Good. All right, very good. So the first budget we do health care. Second budget, April taxes. Now, it's D.C. Some people don't tell the truth. What year? Right? And so the honest, skinny, and I always tell my constituents, right, wherever I go up to my newsletter, I tell you what's happening, whether it's popular or not. I always have done that. It's probably not going to be till the summer, and if it's then, we're lucky. And a lot of you are on my case, and you should be, on fiscal responsibility. How are you going to pay for this? Right? And if you don't do the tax piece and get the economy moving first, I have said very clearly in public, in 18 publications or more, I'm not voting for the spending until I see the tax piece in stone and growth coming. There is some growth coming already due to the registry. But we do not get to go more than debt. It's unethical on these kids back here, young people. We're putting the debt on them. They're going to have to get a job, pay all the bills, and pay off the debt. And that's unethical, right? Intergenerational theft. I'm against it. What do we got?
Sort of a familiar topic, but this person in Richmond, his last name is Brooks. Please tell us you're against the voucher system for Medicaid. Please tell us.
Voucher system for Medicare. I don't know of any plans for any alternative policy on Medicare whatsoever. It's not. I don't know what it is. You have to show me a bill, right? Am I against it? Whatever. It's got to be a bill or an issue.
I believe this has sort of been asked before. This is from Alan Langer of Glen Allen. And we're being touched on, but it's a short question, so I like the short questions. Congressman, what exactly specifically will replace the Affordable Care Act?
Right. That's the trillion-dollar question.
When might we find out? When might we find out?
I think we will find out this month. Within a month, we don't have any budget numbers on the cost of a replacement yet. That's one way of making it very clear to you that I'm not making stuff up. Right? So we have some suggested principles. I think there's 18 bullet points, but there is no dollar figure attached. That tells you I don't have it in front of me. Right? If I can't analyze the cost of something and exactly what's in it, it's hard to say. But I've told you multiple times the basic components that are going to be covered. Right? Pre-existing care, the rug not pulled out of anybody, 2-year transition path, shopping across state lines, etc.
This will be our last.
State block grants.
This will be our last question, and I have to say I'm surprised at the crowd this big.
Anybody got a good joke? We need to.
Dave,
We have not heard this word tonight. We have not heard this topic tonight, and this is a military town. Congressman, tell us what you're doing for veterans.
Good. I started off probably with Phil Rapp, my chief of staff, who's here. We visited the Veterans Hospital in Richmond probably more than any other single site. We're working with the director there. It's one of the jobs I take most serious. One of the real issues at the more micro level working on is the heroin addiction problem, the opioid problem. We're working on dogs that work with the veterans. They come in and made a very good case that can help them adjust to life, civilian life, and overcome some of the issues they have that way. We're doing everything we can for the veterans. Trump, that's the one that he gets pretty heated on a couple of things. That's one of them. And you can tell he's sincere on that. I think we got big, good stuff coming down for veterans. If he pushes it, it'll happen. And I think he's going to push it. Any good lighthearted ones to close, or are we done there?
Congressman, any pointing remarks you'd like to make to this crowd tonight?
No, some of you are as boisterous as Trump, but I loved every minute of it. I enjoyed being with you. All of you, I know, are my constituents. We read the counties off. I want to make it very clear, everyone in this room, everyone on that street that I saw, I don't like the little gotcha politics, whatever, right? It's been an honor for me to be in front of all my constituents tonight. And so thank you for being here. And God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for coming out. Be safe.